Hey guys, tonight we visit a place where physics takes a sabbatical and flowers hum lullabies in 4 dimensions. Welcome to the Gravity Gardens, nestled delicately along the inner arc of Saturn's, a ring where space tourists nap in levitating hammocks and horticulture gets a PhD in theoretical physics. You're going to float, drift, maybe accidentally flip, and almost certainly forget where your feet are supposed to go. But don't worry, you probably won't survive this as a serious science mission. Then again, that was never the point. Your journey begins aboard a mid-tier orbital cruiser, the Lullaby Freightliner, pride of economy-class cosmic comfort. As Saturn grows in your viewport, its rings stretch across the stars like a broken vinyl record. The Gravity Gardens don't appear at first glance. They lay hidden in plain sight, a translucent biodome rotating lazily just above the densest part of the rings, its hexagonal panels shimmering with programmable opacity. When you blink, it looks like the dome vanishes into space. Blink again, and it's back maybe. The cruiser docks with a gentle hiss of magnetic lock. The airlock unzips with the faint scent of eucalyptus and roasted circuits. You unbuckle and glide toward the transfer corridor, nudged forward by small puffs of ionized air. Saturn limbs behind you like a peach bruised by the gods. You step into the welcome atrium, where artificial gravity pulls you down at a sly diagonal. It's like walking on the set of a sci-fi film directed by a well-meaning surrealist. The floor tilts 12 degrees from standard, not enough to fall, but enough to confuse every part of your vestibular system. You steady yourself on the handrail, which politely vibrates every 5 seconds as a grounding reminder, don't trust your instincts here. Botanical symphony fills the air, green, wet, melodic. You hear a faint chittering from a canopy above, as though leaves are gossiping about your arrival. A ceiling vine unwinds and gently boops your shoulder, its leaves rustling in what can only be described as mild approval. Welcome, the flora seems to say. You made it, barely. Above you, a transparent panel gives a dramatic view of Saturn's rings, close enough to make your inner child scream and your inner physicist weep. Countless ice particles, some as small as sugar grains, others the size of hovercars, swirl in silent harmony. Somewhere below, a garden maintenance drone floats past upside down, beeping jazz. A central pillar begins to hum. Soft blue light spills outward, forming a path of glowing dots on the floor. It is not clear if this is the correct direction or just the AI trying to show off. Either way, you follow it, drifting more than walking. As you pass a planter labeled cactus, variant 7, emotionally withdrawn, it flinches and retracts its spine slightly. You nod apologetically. Some guests in the past were too handsy. Gravity here operates on a gradient, they tell you. The gardens are tiered vertically and laterally each, section tuned to different gravities using localized fields and the delicate tug of Saturn as mass. One moment you're practically weightless, the next you're just slightly floaty like wearing dream-soled shoes. You catch sight of your reflection in a humidity dome and realize you're grinning. It's not every day you get welcomed into a living artwork that also occasionally bites. An ambient announcement rolls in from above, spoken in that soft, vaguely flirtatious tone as if perfected. Welcome, honored guest. You are now entering the equatorial bloom tier. Please refrain from eating the air fungus. It has unresolved legal status. The hallway curves into a wider dome. Vines crawl overhead, displaying bioluminescent greeting symbols, some in galactic Esperanto, others in what might be interpretive dance. You try to wave back and are immediately photobombed by a floating spore that sneezes glitter. A guide appears, or rather projects. It's a rotating helix of mist and light, vaguely humanoid in posture with too many elbows. Its voice is warm and well-practiced, the kind that could sell insurance to comets. Welcome to the Gravity Gardens of Saturn. You may refer to me as Florence. I'll be with you through the journey. Unless I'm recalibrating my SAP sensors, in which case, Follow the smells of confusion. You nod, because you've already lost the plot of gravity and need something solid like a sarcastic hologram. As Florence hovers beside you, you pass into the next chamber. The lighting shifts to a soft amber, mimicking a sunset on some unclaimed exoplanet. The floor beneath your feet undulates slightly, like a giant breathing carpet made of moss and memories. Saturn hangs in the sky above perpetually sunset, perpetually surreal. You realize you haven't checked your chronometer since docking, and time feels politely optional here. The kind of place where a nap could last a year if no one interrupts. Your guide gestures forward or possibly sideways. It's hard to say. Let's continue, shall we? The ferns are especially musical this cycle, and one of the hedges believes it's your soulmate. You footstep forward into the scented corridor, not quite sure what's next, but entirely sure it'll be weird, wonderful, and lightly judgmental. You pass through the translucent archway into a chamber that defies all architectural modesty. The path before you rises and tilts at angles your earthborn knees find deeply offensive. It's been described as mildly drunk terrain by our less diplomatic guests. Gravity, or at least the loose idea of it, becomes more of a mood suggestion than a force. Florence spins beside you, twinkling faintly as she explains. This zone operates at 0, 4G rotational skew with variable axis tilt. They spell out greetings in a dozen alien languages, and one suspiciously like cursive English that reads, "Walk softly, the floor might judge you." You nod politely while grasping a vine handle hanging from the ceiling like a bored jungle gym. The sensation is somewhere between trampoline, space elevator, and dream logic. You land in a slow-motion crouch, feeling the pull of gravity reset just enough to keep you tethered. Your legs swing slightly as you adjust to the shift, mostly. Not in the legally recognized sense, but in that they shift color and texture based on your gait. The terrain oscillates beneath your feet, subtly vibrating in rhythm with Saturn's electromagnetic fluctuations. Gravity is heavier at the center, light at the edges, and non-existent at the midpoint. She nods at you, then casually flips upside down to examine a dangling orchid with a beak. You nod back, fully unsure if that was a greeting, challenge, or a yoga pose. The result, a gentle tug pulling you inward while also nudging you up, which is roughly 76 Earth hours. She calls this section her internal monologue loop. Visitors around you float with arms extended, drifting like water dancers choreographed by a bored deity. The hedges ripple guiltily. You forgive them. You always forgive plants until they demand alimony. For a moment, all noise fades, and the only sound is the soft breathing of the plants and your own weightless pulse. You ascend like an astronaut on a lazy staircase, one hop at a time. Florence pauses near a junction. Somewhere in the distance, a gong chimes in C minor. Florence claims it as from a mood-sensitive tree that only rings when it senses introverts. The room stops spinning. You feel strangely refreshed, also slightly minty. As you step, a trailing glow of blues and violets follows, like you're dragging auroras on your solace. Walking is an option, but floating awkwardly, hopping, tumbling, or performing a confused interpretive dance is far more common. They offer a soft humming vibration beneath you, encouraging visitors to lie back and let gravity do whatever it currently feels like. You oblige. It feels like being cradled by marshmallows that took a mindfulness course. It feels like they're performing a passive-aggressive dance recital. They look like translucent guppies, except their fins are veined with photosynthetic threads, and their gills exhale faint lavender mist. You float a few centimeters upward, arms spinning like a startled cat. Florence hovers closer. You reach out, and one flutters close to your palm before zipping off like a gossiping breeze. You give them a thumbs up. They rustle proudly. The floor panels are alive. The dome above stretches high, nearly 80 meters, lined with coils of flowering ivy that have been trained into massive calligraphic loops. As your body learns to cooperate with the environment, you bounce off a slightly convex ramp that launches you up onto a floating garden platform. The plants here respond to motion. You notice a cluster of silver ferns that flatten their fronds as you approach, then spring back with exaggerated flare once you pass. A small school of palmfish, yes, that's apparently what they're called, drifts by overhead. They're new, Florence chirps, bioengineered last cycle. They help spread the sunny motion spores. Very effective in the romantic zones. You raise an eyebrow. Romantic zones? Oh, yes, she replies. Some sections of the gardens induce mild crushes, completely safe. You float walk on, adjusting to the spatial inconsistency with admirable awkwardness. The next garden terrace you enter is shaped like a spiraling hourglass. Here, you meet your first other guest, a retiree from Europa, wrapped in a color-changing shawl that shifts hues with her breathing rate. She's been here for 3 Saturnian days, Florence explains. You smile politely and drift toward a cluster of cushiony spire lilies. Above, Saturn's rings shimmer in the filtered sunlight, casting fractured rainbows through the dome. Then, without warning, a gentle hiccup in the grav field sends your foot slightly airborne. Apologies, minor field hiccup. The hedges got emotional again. They'll stabilize shortly. You land gently with a thud as soft as a disappointed pillow. The path shifts again, rising into a gentle helix. Up ahead, she whispers, the scented corridor. But first, a quick recalibration of your inner ear fluids. Before you can protest, a faint harmonic buzz hums through the floor, and your equilibrium snaps to something approximating upright. See? Florence smiles. Recalibrated and ready to sniff things. And with that, you drift toward the next portal, not entirely sure which direction is forward anymore, but entirely ready to find out. The corridor ahead is filled with a shimmering haze, like mist illuminated from within by fireflies with PhDs in mood lighting. This is the scented corridor of breathing ferns, a section that smells like someone bottled the concept of comfort and sprayed it into the air at regular intervals. First, the soft musk of sun-warmed fabric. Then a breezy citrus that reminds you of your first vacation on Mars. Then, oddly, pancakes. Not a flavor, not maple syrup, just pancakes as a feeling. Florence drifts beside you, adjusting her projection slightly to appear more plant-adjacent. A marketing decision, you suspect. You step inside and are immediately embraced by warm, pulsing scents that change every few meters. The corridor is lined with tall, feathery ferns with leaves that slowly inflate and deflate like sleeping lungs. They're not truly alive, not in the messy, heart-pumping way you are, but their movements are timed to a central rhythm generator that syncs with local brainwaves. They analyze micro-expressions and scent receptors to tailor olfactory comfort. As you walk, you realize the scents are actually reacting to you, mirroring your mood, maybe even trying to improve it. He appears to be having an internal debate about flavor metaphors. A speech bubble hovers above his head, flashing alternating text. Each fern cluster here is part of a biofeedback loop, Florence explains. You blink. You did not tell anyone about that blanket. The scent changes to old books and new rain, a combination Florence assures you is a bestseller among melancholy tourists. You nod slowly as a gentle waft of lavender and campfire hits your nose. A panel flickers overhead with a readout. You notice that it's not solid anymore, more like a tightly woven net of root and gel that flexes with each step. Not enough to be alarming, but just enough to remind you that the entire structure is, at its core, a plant having a daydream about being architecture. Some begin to hum in low tones like a sleepy choir warming up. You spot a fern with a glowing tag. Detected emotional state, wistful nostalgia. A fern to your left responds by releasing a perfume note that smells exactly like your childhood blanket. They're very intuitive, Florence adds helpfully, also slightly nosy. Above you, the fern's breathing patterns are reflected in shimmering fractals. expanding and contracting like a cosmic heartbeat. The floor beneath you stops pulsing and goes still, as if to say, you've made it. No need to keep running from your feelings. As you move farther in, the floor begins to pulse faintly underfoot. The air smells like acceptance with a hint of roasted coconut. You pass another guest, a lanky android in meditation mode, suspended upside down from a ceiling vine. Banana is not a texture, but it is. Florence ignores him with the practiced grace of someone used to robot poetry slams. The corridor turns gently left, and you follow the curve. You pause at a bench carved from petrified lichen. It crumbles slightly beneath your weight, then promptly regenerates. Florence smiles. The benches heal themselves. But they remember the betrayal. You pat the bench apologetically. A tiny sprout emerges where your hand touched. It smells like cinnamon and unresolved parental expectations. Farther in, the lighting shifts from golden to deep teal, and the ferns grow taller. Beta 88 hums in G-flat during existential dread. Don't lean too close to that one, Florence advises. It once triggered a 4-hour flashback in a visiting poet. Beautiful, but messy. The corridor ends in a circular alcove with a mirrored ceiling. You exhale deeply. Florence hovers near your shoulder. Ready for the chlorophonics tour, the vines are rehearsing something dramatic. You nod and follow her through the exit arch. One last whiff of fern breath clinging to your sleeves, like a memory that doesn't want to let go. Hi, ChatGPT. You emerge from the corridor into a sunlit dome where the air feels polite. That's the only way to describe it, like the temperature, the humidity, the scent, and even the gravity have all agreed to take it easy on you. Florence pulses beside you, reshaping into a more spherical, jellyfish-like projection. Her new form, casting gentle rainbow, glints across the transparent floor. This is the chlorophonic sector, a lush hanging garden suspended in transparent layers. Instead of soil, the plants here thrive on biogel columns and nutrient mists, fed by a sophisticated network of micro-root circuits. The plants seem alert, almost attentive. One large blossom tilts toward you as if inspecting your haircut. Chlorophonics, where plants grow vertically, emotionally, and sometimes judgmentally. The air hums gently, like 1,000 kettle whispers all at once. You float upward along a soft spiral ramp, passing clusters of hanging vines that blink bioluminescent greetings as you go. Another spins slowly, its leaves forming what could only be described as a jazz hand. It's part ballet, part irrigation, and entirely fabulous. It's not every day a plant flirts with you. One turns deep plum as you pass, another one flares yellow, then immediately wilts. From here, the entire system breathes an organic lung for the biodome. You drift onto a hammock that adjusts automatically to your mass and mood. The moment you lie back, soft harmonics begin to play from the vines above. It's not a song, exactly more like a suggestion of one, with a tempo your heartbeat starts to match. They don't speak per se, but they do ... emote. They're not part of the garden's usual aesthetic. No one knows what the symbols mean. Some believe they're care instructions. Others think it's passive-aggressive plant poetry. Florence zooms in. If a vine curls away, it's likely offended. If it loops around your wrist, it either likes you or is composing a poem. You begin to suspect the plants are aware they're being observed. One vine gives you a lazy wave goodbye. It brushes against your hand, then retreats modestly, glowing faintly green. A panel lights up nearby. Welcome to the most dramatic of the garden zones, Florence declares. The vines here are not content to sit still. As you drift by, one vine flips theatrically, striking a pose midder. Scientists disagree on whether it's evolved, gone sentient, or simply bored. Not menacingly, more like a grandmother plant silently wondering when you will settle down and start a root system of your own. Its roots stretch into the dome's deep channels, anchoring it like a tree growing upside down. A placard identifies it as specimen Theta V. A maintenance drone zips past, spritzing mist onto a row of curling ferns that lean into the spray with exaggerated swoons. Florence leads you to a central node, a tall, shimmering column from which dozens of chlorophonic tendrils descend like chandeliers made of seaweed and dreams. Each vine is connected to a root core intelligence, Florence explains. You reach out to touch a soft, curling tendril. Emotion registered, curious affection. You smile. Farther along, you encounter a display labeled Mood Orchids. Each blossom shifts hue based on nearby emotions. That one's a drama queen, Florence notes. Ignore it, unless it cries. Then offer compliments. The sector includes vertical spirals, platforms, and zero-G lounges made from breathable moss composites. A curious detail you hadn't noticed before, along the outer walls, symbols pulse in soft blue light. Ah, these are from a previous species who tried to cultivate the garden symbiotically. You ask if they're still deciphering it. Oh, we stopped trying years ago, Florence says. The vines seem to enjoy the mystery. You hover beneath one of the oldest vines, thicker, darker, with petals like folded galaxies. It's been here since the gardens were installed, Florence says, her tone softer now. You sit with Theta V for a while. It doesn't move, it doesn't glow. But something about its stillness feels intentional. You feel watched. After some time, the soft hum of mist signals the end of the sector's cycle. A doorway glows gently to the east. Shall we continue? Florence asks. The lagoon flowers have started their floating ritual. They get very pouty if no one watches. You nod, taking one last look at the spiraling tendrils above. You step into a dome that feels like stepping into a dream, one of those dreams where water hangs in midair and gravity seems to be composing its own jazz solo. Welcome to the hover pools, the floating flora sector. Beneath your feet is a shallow lagoon made of ultra-fine floating gel water, warm to the touch, completely transparent, and only half respecting the rules of physics. Designed to simulate the sensation of drifting within a drop of dew. If dew had ambitions and an art budget, you don't sink, you don't stand. They float not with stems, but via precision-tuned air pressure nodes built into their roots. They drift lazily, sometimes pirouetting when brushed by a breeze, sometimes following guests around like curious butterflies made of petals. You just hover, lightly pressing down on the water's surface, sending shimmering ripples outward like you're skating on soft glass. The air here is misty, the light diffused into pastel shimmers, and somewhere above, gentle orchestral chords swell and fade as if the sky is breathing music. A small trail of bloomlets follows them, bobbing like ducklings behind their chosen parent. You wave. They don't wave back, but one of the duckling flowers does a twirl on their behalf. The ground, or what counts as ground, isn't solid. On top floats a platform of woven hydrosilk, supporting a lounge space complete with gravity-neutral recliners. This is a neutral buoyancy biome, Florence explains, reforming into a floating spiral shell. We once had a couple from Ganymede who woke up 3 days later, married to each other and a vine. The vine still sends letters. The dome's ceiling is a translucent film showing the full sweep of Saturn's rings above, refracted into hundreds of shifting prisms. Tiny specks move across the rings, maintenance drones, perhaps, or microscopic life forms no one has bothered naming yet. A flower the size of your hand hovers close, then gently bounces onto your lap. It rests there, humming softly. It smells like ... laughter. It shivers once, spins, and drifts away. The flowers part gently, making room, their movements seemingly choreographed. It's a silent ballet of curiosity and politeness. One of them swears it's composing a solo in A minor. Scientists are split on whether it's just coincidence or calligraphy. Its petals shimmer between shades of mint green and sunrise pink, and as it approaches, it emits a faint musical tone, like a wine glass being played by the wind. Behind you, the floating flowers continue their quiet dance. The hover pool ripples in concentric waves, carrying the sound of laughter, wind, and humming petals. Floating above the water's surface are the stars of this sector, the aerial lilies, hover blooms, and hydroxic orchids. You take a slow step forward or possibly sideways, and a large daisy-like bloom bobs into your path. For a moment, the flowers above seem to bloom in slow motion. One unfurls a petal toward you and briefly projects a holographic pattern across your arm, a swirl of symbols, shapes, maybe even a map. It fades before you can read it. You close your eyes, and the hum of the garden wraps around you like a lullaby. You freeze, not wanting to disturb it. The flower pauses, then makes a slow, deliberate loop around you, humming contentedly. Others, well, they've been trying to decode it for decades. You've been chosen, Florence whispers with fake seriousness. Hover blooms only circle guests they find interesting or confused, which honestly overlaps quite a bit. You continue moving, carefully weaving between the floating flora. Further ahead, a guest drifts past on their back, arms outstretched, completely immersed in the experience. Florence guides you toward the center of the dome, where the water forms a slight mound, a raised hill made of buoyant liquid. You ease into one of the seats, which adjusts itself perfectly to your body and mood. Some guests spend entire sleep cycles here, Florence murmurs. You tilt your head back and stare up. The rings are alive in a way, Florence offers, not sentient, but rhythmic. Some claim to hear whispers in their patterns. Your recliner gently tips you backward, letting you hover just above the water, supported by nothing but balance and good engineering. You don't fall asleep, not quite, but you drift into a state that feels suspiciously like the prelude to dreaming. They do that sometimes, Florence says. Some think it's just decorative. You sit up slowly, the flower rolling off your lap and bouncing lightly back onto the water. Your skin tingles gently. Not unpleasant, just noticed. Time to head to the symphony trees, Florence says. They've been unusually chatty today, or possibly tuning themselves. You glance around one last time as you glide toward the edge of the dome. The entrance to the arboreal symphony room is framed by two towering tree-like structures that bend toward each other, forming an arch of living wood and light. The moment you pass beneath them, the air changes. It grows still, not silent, but hushed, like the breath before a grand performance. Even Florence dims her glow slightly, as if lowering her voice out of respect. Suspended from that ceiling are long strands of photosynthetic silk that shimmer like slow-falling rain. They respond to sound, light, and mood, swaying gently with your movements. The trees are listening, she murmurs. Try not to offend them with off-key thoughts. You smile at the joke at least. You think it's a joke and step into the chamber. You notice the sound now, a low, evolving harmony that shifts depending on where you stand. Move a few steps to the left, and the string-like tone fades in. Step right, and something like a harp woven from wind joins in. The room is vast. The ceiling curves high above like the inside of a planetary observatory. Each one is different in color and texture. Some have bark that pulses faintly with iridescent veins. Others hum quietly like distant singing bowls. The platform lifts an inch, and you feel a tingling on your skin like goosebumps from a memory you haven't had yet. The trees respond. Sound rises around you, slowly and carefully, no explosion of notes, just layer upon layer of gentle vibration. It's not just music, it's sensation. Your ribs seem to vibrate, your breath becomes rhythmic. You feel your pulse sensing with something deeper, older, arboreal. The trees return to their subtle humming, and the platform lowers. You step off with legs that feel slightly different, as though you've just remembered an emotion you forgot to experience when it first arrived. One tree appears completely metallic, Though you reinformed it is entirely organic, its bark is a self-arranging alloy of biometal and pot-reactive mycelium. At the center of the dome stand 12 massive symphony trees, evenly spaced in a circular formation. As you stare, the leaves vibrate softly, and a faint chime dances in the air like someone whispering through bells. You walk among them slowly. The gravity here is slightly heavier, grounding you just enough to keep your feet from floating off with the music. They resonate with your presence, Florence explains. Each visitor draws a unique melody. The trees listen, analyze, and harmonize. Others say they remember the ones that didn't finish. One of the trees bends slightly toward them as they approach, already beginning to hum. You smile. A branch curls down gently from above and rests on your shoulder, a gesture that feels halfway between "we like you" and "you needed this." You pause in front of one tree that seems to be coated in what looks like glass leaves. A placard near its roots reads, "Cadenza 7, known to respond most strongly to unresolved feelings." You stare at it. It chimes again. You look away. In the center of the 12 trees, a small circular platform glows faintly, and Florence gestures you toward it. "This is the convergence pad," she says. "Stand here and let them play you." You hesitate, but step in. The trees aren't making music for you. They're making music about you. Florence says nothing. Even her usual commentary falls silent. A few seconds or minutes you can't tell pass before the resonance fades. "How do you feel?" Florence asks, more quietly than usual. You consider lying. "You don't, I feel tuned," you whisper. Florence beams. "That's the idea." As you leave the circle, you pass another guest just entering, a child no older than 10, eyes wide with awe. At the edge of the chamber, you find a small seating area made of tree rings, actual slices grown into place. You sit. "Some say these trees remember every tune they've played," Florence says. You nod slowly. The air around you shimmers with unresolved chords. The exit pulses softly nearby, shaped like a tunnel of leaves. Beyond it, Florence promises, is lunch. You're not hungry, but you're ready. The dome ahead opens with a soft whoosh of pressurized air and a waft of sweetness, like melon warmed in sunlight. You step into the dining pavilion, a floating platform suspended over nothing but mist and the silent swirl of Saturn's clouds below. It is less a room and more a suspended moment in the atmosphere, held together by engineering, elegance, and the promise of a really good meal. The table is already set, long and curved like the spine of some ancient space creature. It is made of transparent crystal wood, a rare material grown rather than mined. The chairs are molded moss sponges that hum gently as you sit, adjusting their firmness in real time. You cannot tell if it is comfortable or if you have just been hypnotized into thinking it is. Hovering over the center of the table is your meal, a midday spread designed by the garden's culinary biome and a JFAC cluster affectionately known as spatula. Today's menu features zero-G fruit, gravity-tempered soup, and a beverage aerated by Saturnian breeze. Florence narrates, flickering with a chef's hat just for flair. The clouds stretch endlessly below, a swirling soup of ammonia, hydrogen, and unknowable poetry. The wind patterns resemble brushstrokes. You lean forward. Some say they form temporary eyes, windows into Saturn's subconscious, or indigestion. They appear to be debating which flavor profile best represents ambivalence. You decide not to interrupt. The zero-G fruit arrives first, translucent spheres that bob in the air around your face, gently orbiting you until you pluck one. You open your mouth, and the sphere slips in as if guided by curiosity. It is cool, citrusy, and just a little bit wild. You taste wind, possibly cloud. The last one tastes exactly like the color of a sunrise you once saw through a cracked visor, somewhere between coral, nostalgia, and forgotten names. You choose a violet orb. It bursts between your teeth with the crisp flavor of pomegranate and starlight. Another orb floats temptingly, tasting like minty pear and distant thunder. You are not entirely sure how those last two flavors exist simultaneously, but you're also not complaining. Next comes the soup. It levitates in a shallow bowl with a stabilizing ring, the liquid trembling ever so slightly as you lift the spoon. It is a warm, golden orange broth with microflora that glow faintly when stirred. The taste is somewhere between roasted pumpkin and theoretical comfort, like a flavor from a recipe passed down through dreams. The soup's probiotics were harvested from the oxygen gardens near Neptune. Florence mentions, they are very chill. Behind you, Saturn watches through the clouds, vast, ancient, and silently amused. The drink follows, served in a floating bubble of dew that hovers just above your palm. Halfway through the meal, the platform shifts slightly, giving you a better view of Saturn's lower storm bands. Those are the dragon currents, Florence says, named for how they curl and clash. She gestures toward a segment of ring debris passing close by, just far enough to be scenic, close enough to make you believe you could touch it if you believed hard enough. On the far end of the platform, another guest is engaged in a serious conversation with a glistening cucumber-shaped food drone. The meal ends with a dessert course, crystalline wafers that shatter in your mouth like sugared lightning. As the dishes clear themselves, dematerializing with a soft chime, Florence floats beside you, now with a napkin tied around her non-existent neck. Satisfied, you nod, a little drowsy, a little dreamy. Good. The next stop is the moss mazes. They requested your presence personally. You raise an eyebrow. Apparently, she adds, they heard you think too much. You laugh, stretching as the platform gently tilts downward, leading you toward the next sector. You arrive at the edge of a hill that isn't really a hill, more of a soft, living undulation of earth covered in velvet-thick moss. The entrance to the moss mazes yawns before you, dark and inviting, like the forest floor of a dream that forgot how to end. The air here is cool and damp, rich with the scent of soil, sleep, and a hint of mint. Florence reappears beside you, now wearing a monocle and holding a tiny walking stick for no reason you can discern. Welcome to the reflective zone, she announces. The moss would like to get to know you, possibly better than you know yourself. You hesitate. They're good listeners, she adds, and worse gossipers. Every sound is absorbed, muffled. Even your footsteps barely register. It's the kind of silence that doesn't come from absence, but from attention. You feel watched again. Not by eyes, but by awareness. The moss is ... listening. You take your first step into the maze, and immediately the ground gives a soft, plush recoil beneath your foot. The color of the spores shifts slightly depending on your expression. Then it reappears farther down, a creature with too many tails and eyes that blink out of sync, a soft blue glow. Thoughtful, curious, maybe a little sad. It's like walking on a breathing sponge. The walls of the maze rise up on either side, woven from vine-netted moss, so thick it looks like green fur. The deeper you go, the quieter the world becomes. Both lead inward, only one leads ... inward. They only exist when no one's looking directly at them. Don't worry, they rarely bite. The deeper you walk, the more your thoughts start to wander. Not randomly, but pointedly, as if guided. Inside is a single glowing stone embedded in a patch of unusually alert moss. It doesn't always share what it remembers. But when it does ... well, be kind. You feel a pulse beneath your palm once, twice, and then ... a flicker in your vision. You step closer. The stone lights up with symbols, no language, you know, but they feel familiar. But the sky is wrong. The trees shimmer like crystal. Someone laughs a sound like wind through broken glass. Memories rise without prompting. Your first night alone in 0G, the taste of that bitter tea on Venus, the look in your instructor's eyes before they said goodbye. At one corner, a puff of spores erupts gently as you pass, swirling in slow spirals around your head. The spores act as mood indicators, Florence whispers, not dangerous, but extremely nosy. You smile despite yourself. Further along the path, you spot motion. Something small, fox-like, with glimmering fur darts through the wall of moss and disappears again. You realize the moss is growing in shapes, faces, forms, fragments of memory. Yours, others, the line blurs. Echo foxes, says Florence, native to mirrored dimensions. The moss under you forms perfectly to your shape, even gently cupping the back of your knees. You let your eyes close. You try to catch a better glimpse, but the fox always seems one glance ahead of you, skittering just outside of certainty. The maze forks into two paths, one bright, dappled with moving sunlight from somewhere unseen, and one dark and twisting, marked by slow pulses of bioluminescent fungus. Choose your confusion, Florence offers. You opt for the darker path, curiosity winning over caution. A wall of moss ahead opens slightly, revealing a hidden alcove. The moss remembers everyone who's passed through, Florence explains. You place your hand on the moss. It's warm, softer than skin. For a second, you're somewhere else entirely. A memory, maybe, or someone else's. You're in a forest. And then you're back. Florence hovers close, unusually quiet. That happens sometimes, she says. They like you. The path opens again, leading you into a section of the maze where the walls seem to curve gently toward each other. A small platform ahead invites you to sit. You do. For a moment, everything is still. The only sound is the soft, slow sighing of the moss as it breathes with the dome, ready for the vines that sing. Florence whispers after a time. You open your eyes. The spores around you shimmer again golden this time. You nod. The path forward narrows into a shimmering corridor framed by delicate glass beams laced with ivy. As you pass through, the ambient light shifts from forest green to crystalline silver, and the hum of distant voices rises, not people, not machines, plants. You emerge into the crystalline greenhouse of the singing vines. The air here vibrates not from movement, but from sound. Every leaf, stem, and tendril seems to be part of a great living instrument, constantly tuning itself to a cosmic scale only it understands. Others are bright, whistling melodies that flit like birdsong. You turn slowly in place, and the song changes. Not randomly. The plants are reacting to you. As it nears, it begins to hum, not loudly, not aggressively, but personally. The sound vibrates through your bones and settles in your chest like a secret, and most mysterious. The vines here have been singing since long before anyone could explain why. You stop walking without realizing it, held still by the subtle pull of harmony. Others say they're instruments that got tired of being played. Scientists still argue whether they sing for joy or for warning. This is one of the oldest sections of the gardens, Florence whispers. You can't see their face. You're not sure they're real. Minor keys now, echoes of longing. A theme you half remember from a song you never heard. But they're swaying gently in time with the music, listening, maybe conducting. The greenhouse stretches upward in jagged verticals of crystal lattice and glowing glass. Where the vines concentrate their energy, guests sometimes sit inside too. Process. The hum becomes more intimate, like a whisper between old friends. It's beautiful, but not comfortable. You hear laughter you forgot, a goodbye you tried not to remember, the silence of space and the weight of Saturn's rings. It's not painful, but it is deep. Sunlight or something passing for it filters down through layered panels, illuminating clusters of vines that sway with no visible wind. Each vine sings in a different register. Some are low, like cello strings in mourning. And rumors, they're very dramatic. She waits until the song fades and the vines slowly uncurl. You stand lighter. or maybe just more in tune. Their tone shifts based on electrochemical proximity, Florence says. You walk forward slowly, and one vine uncoils from a central column. It stretches toward you, curling lazily through the air like a bored dancer. A small plaque nearby reads, Vine 8A believed, to echo emotional frequency or eavesdrop. Another vine lifts from the floor and begins a slow duet. You don't move, but the harmonies intensify. One high note shivers up your spine. Some say the vines are sentient, Florence murmurs. You take a breath and close your eyes. The vines have resumed their ambient chorus, less personal now, but still echoing, as if remembering you. When you open them again, a pattern of light dances across the wall shapes, waves, musical notations, perhaps. A visual echo of the soundscape. You're not alone in the greenhouse. Far off near the arching ceiling, a humanoid figure sits suspended in a hammock of braided vines. You walk deeper into the chamber, and the music changes again. In the far corner of the room, a spiral of vines descends toward a glowing pit in the floor. Florence hovers beside it. This is the resonance well, she says. You peer down into it. The walls shimmer with colors that defy naming. You lower yourself in. The vines shift to accommodate you, curling around your shoulders, ankles, heart. They don't restrain. They support, and then the music floods you. No words, no lyrics. Just melody woven from your own breath, your heartbeat, the static of memory. You don't cry, but the vines hum like you did. Florence doesn't interrupt. The vines liked you, Florence says. That's rare. Usually they're a bit snobby. You smile and glance back once more as you leave. You exit the crystalline greenhouse into a golden light that pulses as if breathing. The path curls downward, gently sloping into a grove that defies ordinary time. Welcome to the Butterlight Grove and the Slow Time Orchard. The first thing you notice is the stillness. Not silence, but stillness. Leaves hang in mid-fall, suspended like dancers caught between beats. The orchard is designed to help you slow down what you've been rushing through. A butterfly made of translucent petals flutters near your ear, but doesn't quite finish the motion. Even Florence appears. Slower, her holographic shimmer stretched into long, syrupy waves. Don't be surprised if you smell your grandmother's cookies later. This section operates at a temporal gradient, she explains. Time here dilates, gently, lovingly. Memories stretch long and soft. That one argument you still replay. Here, it ends differently. That dream you forgot? It revisits you in fragments as you walk. Their robes shimmer with slowly shifting constellations. One opens their eyes and smiles at you. The other doesn't, but a butterfly lands on their head and seems to approve. You step onto the mossy ground, and the effect is immediate. The racing thoughts in your head soften. Your breathing deepens. Still not sure whether they're meditating or just extremely patient. When you bite into it, the taste blooms slowly, unfolding like a story told over decades. There's citrus, then honey, then a feeling you can't name, like a hug from a place you've never been but always missed. In its center, a stone bench, rippling slightly as though unsure whether it's entirely real. You sit. The bench settles beneath you like a hammock woven from time itself. It's shaped like a spiral, pale blue, and faintly sings. You reach for it, and as your fingers close around it, the orchard fades into a kind of second sleep. The air thickens, not with weight, but with meaning. Their leaves are wide and flat, like fans held open in gentle ritual. Time stops being something to measure. It becomes something to feel. Some have fruits that shimmer with internal light, pulsing once every 10 seconds. Slow fruit for slow people, you suppose? Even your heartbeat begins to echo at half its usual pace, as if your body has sighed in relief. The Butterlight Grove gets its name from the living light's butterfly-shaped organisms that glow with bioluminescent hues. They drift through the air, reacting to your presence with soft flickers and gentle perches. The butterflies hum a farewell around you, their glow a little warmer than before. One lands on your shoulder and hums not a sound, but a feeling, calm, acceptance, maybe the sensation of warm tea on a rainy day. They calibrate your mood, says Florence. And sometimes your dreams. You walk among the trees of the slow time orchard. Their trunks are smooth, silver white. You pick one, a soft golden bulb that seems to hum against your fingertips. As you chew, time slows further, not externally, but within you. The orchard isn't empty. Ahead, you spot a pair of twins elderly, floating in meditative cross-legged poses above the orchard path. They've been here for 5 Earth months, Florence notes. You continue past them and enter a small clearing. The orchard responds most to stillness, Florence says. Not doing nothing, but doing one thing slowly. You breathe, just once, deep and full. A branch above you lowers, presenting a glowing fruit that you didn't notice before. You stay there for a long time, or at least you think you do. When you finally rise, your legs feel slow but grounded. Florence drifts ahead. Next stop, she says, a brief flight. Don't worry, the petals know what they're doing. You follow her toward a platform made entirely of overlapping petals, already gently undulating in the air like a carpet made of sighs. You don't ask questions anymore. You just breathe and step aboard. The petal platform lifts you into the air without sound or ceremony. One moment you're standing among trees that hum in slow time. The next, you're gliding above a garden where the sky seems to hold its breath. Welcome to the petal gliders. Beneath you stretch fields of flowers, vast and alive, arranged in shifting geometric patterns. From this height, the garden is a quilt of color and mood, shifting slowly like a dreaming creature. The wind is soft here, if it can be called wind at all. It doesn't push, it carries. It responds to your weight and posture, adjusting subtly, letting you steer with nothing more than thought and a lean of the shoulder. The petal beneath your feet is broad and pliant, engineered from biofabric that mimics the texture of flower skin. As you move, they sound out a melody that seems familiar, though you've never heard it before. The petals interpret your emotional compass, Florence says. So if you start spiraling, try to keep it poetic. They change color in waves, turquoise, then magenta, then soft white, mirroring your mood in real time. Or theirs. Below, a field of crimson grass ripples in slow waves. You can almost see patterns in it, constellations, mazes, or perhaps just the whim of the wind. It's hard to tell who's reacting to whom. Ahead, a terrace opens up with platforms of gently shifting stone and nests of soft reed fiber for resting. One looks like a spiral galaxy mid-collapse. Another resembles a sleeping face made entirely of orchids. You test a gentle turn. The petal curves gracefully, swooping down over a patch of sun-yellow blooms that seem to reach upward as you pass. No one's sure why. Some think it's art, others think it's a warning. One glider spins slowly in a lazy spiral, the rider laughing as petals peel from their ride and scatter into the air, self-reassembling just as quickly behind them. Other petal gliders drift nearby. Some are occupied guests sitting cross-legged or stretched out, eyes closed in meditation, arms wide and surrendered to the sky. You spot a lake in the distance, shaped like a teardrop caught in motion, its surface completely still. The reflection of the sky is so perfect you briefly forget which side is up. Tiny specks of pollen stick to your fingertips, glowing faintly. Not quite dust, not quite memory. You glide lower and pass through a field of whisper blooms flowers that release faint tones when disturbed. They borrow themes from your subconscious, Florence offers. Or maybe your playlist, it's hard to differentiate. You laugh, the petal ripples happily. As you climb again, the horizon reveals more than just flowers. You bank gently to the right. A gust of warm air nudges you higher. At the edge of the field is a sculpture garden strange in wonderful shapes grown directly from the ground, shaped by years of vine crafting. Those weren't designed, Florence notes. The plants did it themselves. The petal glider begins to descend, slowly curling into a landing pattern. You disembark, and the petal flutters upward, joining the others in lazy orbits above. Florence reforms beside you, now shaped like a wind chime. You raise an eyebrow. The petals ask for ambiance, she says. You look back at the sky, then down at your hands. Next, Florence whispers, comes something even stranger. The memory bloom exhibit. You glance at her. She just nods. Some blooms remember everything, even things you never told them. You take a slow breath, ready to see what the flowers think you forgot. You step into the memory bloom exhibit and immediately feel as though you've walked into someone else's mind. The air is warm and softly glowing, like the inside of a lantern, and the space itself has no fixed shape, just an undulating haze of color and sound that responds to your presence with slow curiosity. Not all at once. One unfolds near your feet, petals glowing like candlelight, its center opening to reveal a flickering hologram. You recognize the image instantly, your own face, though younger, smiling in a way you forgot you could. The blooms begin appearing gradually. Each bloom stores a memory, Florence explains quietly. Not all yours, but some are. The rest are borrowed, shared, lost and found again. The hologram vanishes. Another bloom opens beside it, and this one shows a place, a street you've never been to, but which stirs something in your chest. You hear laughter, wind chimes, a name you don't know, whispered once, then gone. Some say they bloom based on proximity. Others say intention. The weird ones say the flowers are time travelers. It's a feeling, a moment. You're standing in front of something impossible, but you feel absolutely certain about love, about meaning, about who you are. It's a second long, and it lingers like the last note of a song. No one knows exactly how the flowers choose, Florence continues. You realize other guests are here too, scattered among the blooms, each lost in their own unfolding pasts. One is crying softly, another is laughing. One simply stares at a closed bud, waiting. You wander deeper. The floor is soft and mossy. Unlike the others, it isn't a bloom, it's a pool. Shallow mirror flat. Floating on the surface are petals from countless flowers, each one holding a fragment. You lean over. The air thick with the scent of citrus, memory, and old ink. Each one real, each one possible. Each one briefly nodding as if to say, we're still here. You pass a wall of blooms arranged in a spiral. It won't explain, but it will reflect. Each opens as you near, projecting brief glimpses. A hand reaching for another, the surface of a frozen moon, the view from a child's bicycle on a summer day. Not dramatically, just enough that walking forward feels like writing a new sentence after years of rereading the old ones. Instead, it follows you for several steps, bouncing on a thin stem like it's trying to decide if it trusts you. Eventually, it unfolds to reveal an image of a star field you've never seen, but somehow recognize. And there, floating among the stars, is a figure, familiar, watching. You stop at a bloom shaped like a teardrop. Its petals shimmer silver blue, and when it opens, the memory inside is not a visual. Careful, Florence warns gently. Some blooms feel so true you might forget what came after. You breathe out slowly and move on. One bloom doesn't open right away. Some memories, Florence says, aren't memories at all. They're invitations. A low tone hums through the room. You approach a final display. Your reflection stares back, but shifts, flickering between different versions of you. Young, old, joyful, afraid, kind, lost. The memory pool only shows what you're ready to see, Florence whispers. You kneel, touching the water. A ripple spreads outward, blooming in a pattern that resembles a spiral galaxy. When you rise, something in you feels rearranged. Next up, Florence says, the quantum compost ring. Very glamorous. Smells like purpose. You chuckle and follow her toward the exit, glancing back one last time. A bloom near the door opens briefly just to wave. You step through a narrow threshold into a chamber that smells unmistakably like wet soil, citrus rot, and, faintly, regret. Welcome to the quantum compost ring. It's not a ring in the traditional sense. Rather, it's a wide toroidal corridor that wraps around one of the central bioreactors of the gardens. The walls pulse with quiet energy, like something very large is sleeping just beneath the surface. The compost ring handles the garden's metabolic cycle, Florence explains. Everything that decays, dies, or is dramatically discarded comes here, including some of my early poetry routines. A single red light pulses on its surface. You pause. The air thickens, not with sadness, but with honesty. The grief doesn't pull you in. It just acknowledges you. Then moves on. The floor squelches gently beneath your feet, though it's surprisingly pleasant, like stepping on memory foam with a degree in biochemistry. You pass enormous digester cylinders spinning slowly behind transparent panels. Their contents? Ambiguous. Organic matter, yes, but processed down to the molecular psi. Each cylinder is labeled. One glowing strand floats upward, bursts softly, and disappears into the mist. Some display scientific precision, botanical waste, bloom sector. Others are more interpretive, emotional debris, visitor badge number 147, or unfinished conversations, mostly regretful. You take one and write something simple, maybe a name, maybe just a thought that's outlived its purpose. You drop it gently into a chute. We find that memory residue decomposes better when acknowledged, Florence adds, so we name the bins. Makes the molecules feel seen, mistakes becoming moss. You pass one particular large container that reads simply, Grief Unclaimed. Every few seconds, it glows with bursts of blue and green light as reality is gently rewritten into nutrients. The corridor narrows into a viewing platform. A long, transparent panel reveals the core compost vat, a slow-churning galaxy of bio-waste and quantum enzymes. The scent of soil shifts now, hints of petrichor and rain-washed stone. A vine leans from the ceiling, its tip glowing. It gently bops your shoulder. Quantum composting isn't destruction, Florence says. It's transformation at the smallest meaningful level. Energy becoming potential, pain becoming fertilizer. You lean on the railing, the vat churns. It's oddly peaceful. A sign above reads, Speak kindly to what you leave behind. Florence hovers near your shoulder. Visitors sometimes leave notes, she says. We offer dissolvable paper and biodegradable ink. The molecules rearrange into what the garden needs. She gestures to a station with a stack of papery leaves and a pen that smells faintly of eucalyptus and old apologies. The paper disappears. The vat glows. It heard you, Florence says. You smile. In the final stretch of the ring, the lighting grows warmer. That one likes you, Florence says. It thinks you compost well. The corridor exits into a lift of soft vines and suspended platforms. Ready for twilight? Florence asks. The fog's rolling in, and the trees are blinking again. You nod. Time to see what the night garden remembers. The lift of vines carries you upward in a slow, swaying ascent. The platform wobbles gently, not with instability, but with the rhythm of something organic, like being cradled in the arms of a very large, very sleepy plant. Above, the twilight garden unfurls like a dream only half remembered. The canopy glows with soft indigos and greens, punctuated by the occasional deep violet blossom that hums as you pass. Fog winds between trunks in looping spirals, settling in gentle swells across the ground. Bioluminescent trees blink in soft pulses, their leaves lighting up in waves like schools of fish shimmering in sync. The fog here is memory vapor, says Florence, distilled from things people forget on purpose. One even offers you a tiny pillow made from compressed lichen. The trees seem to whisper to each other, their bark pulsing with patterns like heartbeat traces. Occasionally, a blossom puffs out a scent, cinnamon, then sea salt, then the weirdly specific smell of old notebooks. You raise an eyebrow? Don't worry, it's mostly harmless. Just don't inhale too deeply if you skipped your childhood therapy. Tall stalks of reed-like flora vibrate in harmonic tones as firefly-sized drones flit between them, striking notes with soft taps of light. It looks up, blinks slowly, then rolls away in silence. A composition generated by the garden's mood algorithm. Sometimes it's jazz, once it was all accordion. You step onto the mossy landing and immediately sink a few inches not unpleasantly into a bed of microferns that read your posture and adjust for maximum coziness. No one is there. The sound just happens. You feel it in your sternum like a memory that didn't quite stick. The music floats around you like steam, and you lose yourself in the interplay of tone and bioluminescence. Most are poetic nonsense, flying with jellyfish, talking to mountains, teaching a worm philosophy. You wander along a winding trail, glowing softly underfoot, the sense of waiting for someone who never came. The dream dissolves gently, releasing a wisp of golden fog that curls upward like a yawn. And somewhere in the mist, the sound of laughter yours, a child's, a stranger's. In a clearing, a musical performance is taking place. But there are no musicians, only plants. They nod to you in perfect serenity before drifting off into the mist. They're playing the evening fugue, Florence says. One last stop just beyond the quiet hill. You sit for a while on a hovering bench made of braided roots. A nearby guest levitates past, reclining midair with a glowing stone cradled to their chests. You continue walking, now deeper into the fog. A curious creature waddles across your path, something between a mushroom and a turtle, with soft lights blinking along its back. That's a foggle, Florence explains. Half fungus, half algorithm, completely harmless, probably. You pass through an archway of hanging vines, and a single bell chimes. Then, in the next grove, the trees are covered with glowing panels. Each one displays a dream someone once had here. But one panel shows your own handwriting. Your heart stutters. The dream it displays is vague, foggy, even here, but you remember it. A desert of blue sand, a floating house. Sometimes the garden remembers things for us, Florence says, her tone quieter now. You run a hand across the panel. Ahead, the trail rises slightly. More fog, more pulsing trees. Almost there, says Florence. You take a breath and climb. At the crest of the quiet hill, the world changes again. The trees thin into graceful silhouettes, and the fog turns silver, drifting in thin veils across open sky. Above you, Saturn's rings are no longer just a backdrop, they are present. Immense and luminous, slicing across the heavens like 1,000 frozen rivers mid-dream. This is the observatory garden. It's silent here not from absence, but reverence. Even Florence's voice lowers to a whisper. Even the rowdy guests from Pluto find themselves whispering. It's the rings. They make you feel small in a good way. Each step is cushioned by grass that glows pale blue underfoot, casting soft halos around your boots. Benches shaped like comets dot the clearing, and sleeping guests lie curled like parentheses, their breaths in sync with the flickering lights above. No one speaks loudly up here, she says. You move slowly now. At the garden center stands a monolith of transparent crystal, several meters high. Inside, suspended midair, spins a hologram of the entire solar system. But something is off. There are extra planets, too many moons, a second sun. Places people believe exist, even if science disagrees. It's a map of remembered space, Florence murmurs. A new object appears, a tiny green comet labeled simply, you. You touch the crystal, and the hologram responds, shifting to reflect your presence. You chuckle. It's how we know we've been seen. Visitors leave traces, Florence says. You sit on a gently floating bench, watching the stars. It's not the end, just the farthest you've gone for now. Somewhere beyond the rings, a meteor shower begins, ribbons of fire drifting across the void like lanterns lost in time. Soft music filters in, barely there, not from instruments, from the garden itself. A sound like wind wrapped in lullabies. The mist curls closer, your limbs grow heavier. You've reached the edge of the garden, Florence says. You nod. Behind you, the gardens glow. Before you, the sky waits. You close your eyes, and the dream deepens. The bench rocks slowly beneath you, cradled by unseen currents. Each breath you take feels wider, slower, like your lungs are learning how to rest in new dimensions. You can almost hear them if you focus, like a memory playing backwards, familiar but unspoken. The stars above shimmer not with urgency, but with patience. They blink, stretch, sigh. The rings of Saturn swirl above like ancient vinyl records, turning gently under a needle made of light, like a tide drawing back from the shore of your awareness, not disappearing, just quieting. Around you, the garden still moves. Vines breathe, leaves flutter, flowers pulse with thoughtless comfort, and yet it all recedes gently. Florence is no longer beside you, but her presence remains warmth without source, the hum of something kind nearby. It holds you, gently, without condition. It remembers what you've forgotten and forgets what no longer serves. Your body softens. The air thickens into velvet. Thoughts slow until they lose their edges. This place, this dream, doesn't need holding on to. The last sounds you hear are not words or songs, but the hush of space folding gently around you, wrapping you in soft gravity and still time. Sleep comes not with force, but with invitation. You drift and drift and drift